Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So we're gonna be listening to some scary stories. So let's listen to the first one. Actually, there we go.
Have you ever visited Edinburgh? Beautiful city, and no matter what time of year you go. The castle that sits at the centre of the city is awe-inspiring, looking down on the surrounding area from the mount. The peaks and valleys of the land have resulted in a city that flows with the landscape. Streets that surround can be steep, with numerous sprawling alleyways even steeper. It is here that we find Flesh Market Close. It could be mistaken for any other darkened causeway in the city. It sits among the shops and tourist traps, relatively non-threatening, and can be used as a shortcut to get down to the station if you're in a hurry. The name has been justified through some who point out that flesh markets were a local term for butchers, and through others who suggested a hangout of women of the first vocation. These are incorrect. There is a market on the close, but flesh is not the product. It's the currency. Market hours are dusk until dawn, and the entrance fee is one mouthful of your own blood. Prepare a glass and progress down the alleyway. As you get halfway down, swig from the glass and spit it against the wall. The blood will bubble and spread across the wall, coagulating into a hardened scab. This will then start to flake and scatter. A rather anticlimactic door will be revealed beneath. Stepping through is disorienting, as logic will tell you that you're stepping into a building. The space you're stepping into has no walls, with darkness surrounding the edge. It's at the penumbra that a number of stalls are set up, run by individuals who look like market traders from across the globe, from Arabian merchants to Cockney grocers to New York street con men. All their clothes are splattered with blood and offal. These figures will entice you to come speak with them, and will gesture to numerous signs around their stalls. I've been lying down for hours now. It's 5:35 AM, and there's not much I can do. You know what the worst part about my situation is? I'm in the same room with my pair wide open. There's the strong scent of blood, and I feel so paralysed with fear. Here's the thing. The second I make
Okay, hold up. That's when you run out of the house. Just saying. With your Nike shoes, Adidas, who cares? That's when you're out 7 miles out in 5 seconds, bro. Just saying. Also,
any hint that I'm not asleep.
your parents are possessed. They're literally possessed. Yo, Mom and Dad, what are you doing? What? That's how your parents are like. How you doing? I'm watching you. I'm watching real close.
Anymore. I am completely fucked. I will die, and there's nobody around to save me. I've been trying to think of a way out, but the only idea I have is to rush to the door. Like the terrified child I was, I peeked from under my blankets to see what was going on. I could see something.
You thought it was a dream? You literally thought it was a dream. I love that thing. You literally thought it was a dream. Wow.
Dragging my dead parents into the room.
Your parents are dead, bro. They're literally dead, bro. Holy crap. Dead. What's it? You're very dead. Wow. Okay, let's keep on going.
wasn't human, I can tell you that. It was hairless, with no eyes and no clothing. It walks like a caveman.
Oh, I know who it is. It's Chewbacca. Yeah. It's like, Chewbacca. It's great, man. Star Wars is a good movie.
And with its back slouched as it dragged my parents. But this thing was much smarter than any caveman. It was aware of what it was doing. It propped my dad up on the edge of my bed and made him face me. It then sat my mother down in the chair and positioned her towards me as well.
That's straight up creepy. Alright. Yeah, your dad. You're out of here. I'm already 7 miles out while you're still watching your dad sitting on your bed. Like, help me. And once you see him, I'm already 7 miles out. Still up that way.
It then started rubbing its hands upon the wall, staining them with blood, and then drew a circle with a devil's pentagram in it. This thing had made what it would probably call a masterpiece. To finish it off, it scribbled a message onto the wall that I couldn't read in the darkness. It then positioned itself under my bed, waiting to strike.
Face.
The scariest thing now is that my eyes have adjusted to the darkness since then, and I can read the message on the wall. I don't want to look at it, because it's terrifying to think about, but I feel like I need to see before I'm killed. I peek at the creature's masterpiece. I know you're awake.
Okay, that is straight up. No, wait, what?
I couldn't take the calls anymore.
That's straight up creepy. 3 calls. But that is straight up creepy. Like I said. Already 7 miles out. Already 7 miles out. Like, okay, bro. 7 miles out.
Just couldn't take knowing. There was nothing I could do to stop them from coming through. I had to put an end to it. It all started this summer, when I was playing with my eldest daughter, Chrissy. My kid absolutely loved toy cars.
I'm gonna use my finger. Because I was using this thing right here, and it's supposed to, like...
So I gave her my Matchbox collection, which I'd kept in the attic since my childhood. She was driving some farm animals around on the hood of my most prized possession, a classic fire truck with all its original parts and an unblemished paint job, when she suddenly stopped our caravan halfway to Mount Marshmallow Snowflakes, also known as the white leather couch in the corner. "Daddy," she said, her voice sweet and innocent. "Yes, honey," I replied. "Daddy, don't answer the phone," she told me. Having not heard my phone ringing, I wasn't sure what she meant by this. She'd probably seen the screen on my smartphone lighting up from an incoming call. I had a tendency to forget to unmute the thing after meetings at the office. I guess that Chrissy didn't want our play to...
Alright, mute your freaking phone. Bro. Mute it. These people are actually honestly retards. They're not muting their phones. Bro. If you don't know someone, don't pick it up.
...to end, so I assured her Daddy wasn't going anywhere and left the phone alone. She smiled and we continued our game. Later, I checked my call history, but discovered that there hadn't been any incoming calls. I didn't really give it much thought, to be honest.
Why does my face look fat?
A few weeks later, the same thing happened while we were playing doctor and giving Mr. Fuzzy Wuzzy his annual checkup.
I think it's Fuzzy
Chrissy
Wuzzy.
looked up towards the kitchen and dropped her stuffed bear. "Daddy, don't answer the phone," whispered Chrissy in a frightened tone. This time, I chose not to heed her warning. I got up and checked my smartphone right away. No incoming calls. Following Chrissy's gaze, I realised that she was actually looking at the old telephone on the kitchen wall. We had disconnected the landline and unplugged it years ago. My wife had been asking me to take it down the day I'd cancelled our residential phone service. We had both gotten cell phones and wanted to put the money towards something more useful. The bulky white device was screwed into the wall. I kept forgetting to dismount it whenever I had my tools out, and I was too lazy to get them from the garage for such a menial task. I'm shocked my wife didn't wind up removing it herself, since it bothered her so much. Honey, that's not a real phone. No one's calling, I told Chrissy, ruffling her hair. It took Chrissy a few moments, but she eventually went back to playing as though nothing had happened. It was probably some kind of new game she had learned in school or something. She was 7 and had a bunch of imaginary friends. Maybe she'd gotten into an argument with Princess Pufflecakes and didn't want to take her call. I didn't worry about it too much. It wasn't until the 3rd imaginary call that I started to get concerned. Chrissy and I was dressed in a pink tutu with Michelangelo's bandana and a crown on my head. Never underestimate what a father would do to put a smile on his kid's face. I got up to get more juice. Chrissy grabbed me by my frilly skirt, looking absolutely terrified.
That's when you cut her shirt. Run. Wow. Like. Let's continue.
Daddy, don't answer the phone, she pleaded. There was something in her eyes that compelled me to put an end to her weird game. She really looked freaked out. I no longer thought she was playing some sort of reverse psychology Simon Says. If she was making it up, why did she look so genuinely worried? It might be important, sweetheart, don't worry. Daddy will tell those evil telemarketers to leave you alone. I playfully replied as I snuck out of her grasp. I made my way to the kitchen where I picked up the receiver. I turned towards my daughter to give her a reassuring thumbs up, bringing the receiver to my ear. I fully expected to hear silence. Silence, however, was not what I heard. There was static on the line, which surprised me enough that I pulled the phone away for a moment to...
And you said that thing was disconnected, right? That's when your daughter is possessed. She has a ghost near her. She is seeing stuff. Just get out there.
Look at it in disbelief.
Sorry, guys.
When I brought it back to my ear, I heard a voice on the other end. 232, Giandiark Road, Fire, 12, whispered a man tonelessly. What the fudgesicles? I answered, perplexed. My wife must have been playing a trick on me. She'd probably convinced Chrissy to help her out so I'd do my job and get rid of the phone. I immediately yanked the cord, and it came flying towards me, hitting me square in the face. I was stunned. It was far too loose to have been in the jack. When I asked my wife about it, she had no idea what I was talking about. The next morning, I absent-mindedly checked my emails while the news played in the background. There was a segment about a fire in an apartment complex. At first, I didn't pay much attention, but then I heard the address. 232, Giandiark Road. 12 residents had perished in the inferno. I nearly dropped my number 1 Dad coffee mug on the floor. I didn't know what to do. It was too late to call the police and tell them I'd gotten a creepy warning call about the fire. They'd think I was a nutter or an attention seeker. I took a moment to calm down and rationalise what had happened. It was just a very weird and very scary coincidence. Days later, I was playing Sudoku on the couch when Chrissy walked over, wearing a worried expression on her face. Daddy, don't answer the phone, she whispered, tears in her eyes. Something in the pit of my stomach told me not to go.
Bacon done?
But I had to know.
Sorry, guys.
I made my way to the kitchen and picked up the receiver. This time, a British-sounding woman spoke to me through the disconnected phone. 15 Veneer Street, Fire, 3, she announced. Logically, you'd think I'd go to the police or a fire station to tell them what was going to happen. But here's the thing. I've watched the shows, so I know how these things pan out. You've got an attractive male protagonist who gets a forewarning, which is accurate. I won the Most Handsome Daddy of the Year award, as decided on my very unbiased daughter on Father's Day last year. I even have the trophy to prove it. The protagonist tells the cops about his predictions. Naturally, the cops accuse him of being the perpetrator. They lock him up, but he gets out on some technicality, rushes to the scene of the would-be crime, and saves the day. He becomes a true hero in the eyes of everyone. Close curtains. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm not saying I'm a coward, but look, I've got 2 daughters to care for. I can't go putting myself in dangerous situations where I could realistically wind up dead. I instead bought a disposable phone and used it to call the police. In the past 10 years, there have been a lot of suspicious fires in our city, leading the police to suspect that there's a pyromaniac on the loose. Thus far, he or she has burned down a church, a postal office, an outdoor mall, and a smaller post office inside a mall. I'm going to let you take a wild guess as to what the police officer had to say when I warned him about the potential fire at 15 Veneer Street. If you guessed, he accused you of being the pyromaniac and asked you to turn yourself in. Then you deserve a cookie, because that's exactly what happened. I hung up and tossed the phone in a trash can across town. The next day, I watched as the news crew covered the story. The authorities had sent police officers to investigate what turned out to be an abandoned building. 3 officers had gotten locked in the basement. A fire broke out, and none of them made it out. I felt guilty and powerless. If I hadn't have warned them, the cops wouldn't have been in there, and no one would have died. It was my fault. I couldn't sleep a wink that night, the horrid feeling in my gut eating away at me. The process repeated over the course of the next few months. Chrissy would ask me not to answer the phone. I'd pick it up, and I'd hear a different voice speaking.
Yo, what?
Alison was shot dead to investigate what turned out to be an abandoned building. 3 officers repeated over the course of the next few months. Chrissy would ask me not to answer the phone. I'd pick it up, and I'd hear a different voice speaking. I'd be given an address, method of death, and the amount of people killed. 89 Oosgrove Avenue, knife, 1. Mrs. Larkin had been stabbed to death during a home invasion. 60 Star Circle, gas leak, 10. The Campbells were enjoying a family reunion and failed to notice a smell of rotten eggs. 79 Jean-Jacques LaSure, gun, 3. Maria, Jamie and Alison were shot dead while walking home in the early hours of the morning, and so on and so forth, until I couldn't take it anymore. I remember all their names and faces. I saw them on the news reports. I think about them when I go to bed, knowing there was nothing I could do to save them, but tormented by the fact that I didn't even try. Depression started to creep over me, and I could barely eat or sleep. My wife started to get worried, but I couldn't tell her. I was afraid she'd be disappointed in me for my inaction, so I lied. I told her I was stressed out because of work. A few weeks ago, I'd finally had enough. Unable to keep myself from answering these phantom calls, I decided there was no other option. I stormed into my garage and desperately unscrewed the phone from the wall. As I held the device, I felt a wave of anger rush over me. This thing, this damn telephone, it caused me so much grief. I took it to the driveway and furiously smashed it into the concrete with a hammer until there was nothing left but dust and debris. When it was over, I cleaned the mess. The sensation of freedom was euphoric. My whole body tingled as my heavy burden lifted from my shoulders. That night, I made our favourite family meal and dessert to celebrate. My wife was relieved that I'd gotten over whatever it was that was bothering me, and enjoyed that the eyesore in the kitchen had finally been removed. I have a piece of advice for you. If you have a disconnected landline and haven't gotten around to removing it, please take a lesson from me. Get rid of it immediately, and, above all else, do not pick up the receiver. My life has returned to normal since I got rid of that wretched phone. As I'm typing this, my wife is giving our youngest daughter a bath. I can hear them singing the Bubble Bath song and giggling. Chrissy is in the living room with me. She's playing with this silly pink Disney phone. It's one of those fancy schmancy glittery toys. A pimped out version of the Fisher-Price rotary phone I used to have when I was a kid. Every dial projects a different message from one of the Disney princesses. It's weird. She'd never shown any interest in it before. It's not a real phone. It doesn't even have a cord. But there's that look in her eyes again. She's worried. And I know what she wants to say. No, it's just a toy. It's just a toy. It's just a toy. I'm going to check. I need to know. Shit. static on the other end. It's a man's voice. He's saying, "It's my address. Propane explosion. 4. I need to get my girls out of here. Please, please don't let it be too late."
Alright. Let's do the next one. This one ain't that long. So,
You've seen her. You know you have. Try to deny it all you want. It happened. It happened a lot, actually. Never fully. Always out of the corner of your eye. Just out of sight. That's where she stays. She does not like to be seen,
oh,
but she loves it.
wait, this one, there goes, sorry.
I live in South London, in a 3rd-floor flat, in a 5-story building. 2 floors above, 2 floors below. Being that I live in London, I'm used to seeing people act drunk, crazy or violent, especially at night when the nutters come out. But what I experienced, this little piggy went to market. It confused me for a second. I thought whoever he was, he must have been talking to someone who was with him, until I heard the voice whisper again from the stairway at the end of the balcony I stood. This little piggy stayed home. If these whispers are aimed at me,
But go back for a second.
this little piggy went to market. Look through the spy hole. I see the usual city lights, through the rusty balcony railings and the poorly lit car park 2 stories below. I don't ever really expect to see anything interesting. Last night, as I was smoking a cigarette out on the balcony, I heard the voice of a man, whispering loudly. So loud it defeated the point of him whispering in the first place. I couldn't tell if it was on the balcony above or the one below, but I heard what he said. This little piggy went to market. It confused me.
This little piggy went to the market? What does that mean? What does that mean? Like, honestly, what does that mean? So my hair's just really bad right now. It's really messy. I have to take a shower here soon. But also I'm gonna be here with my friends, so.
For a second, I thought whoever he was, he must have been talking to someone who was with him, until I heard the voice whisper again from the stairway at the end of the balcony I stood. This little piggy stayed home. If these whispers are aimed at me, I sure as hell don't know why. Post-haste, I put out my cigarette and turned to walk back into my flat. This little piggy had roast beef. I heard it being whispered behind me as I stepped into the doorway. The whisper sounded as if it were immediately behind me. It sent a chill through my bones. I slammed the door shut in a nervous rush. I knew I shouldn't have looked through the spy hole. I knew looking would be a bad idea. But I looked anyway. Why did I look? I lined my eye up, close to the spy hole, and tried to focus my vision. But all I could see was black. I could hear someone on the other side, breathing heavily through their nostrils, and what sounded like the grinding of teeth. I was frozen in place, knowing on the other side of that door stood some menacing creep. Staying there, staring out, I tried to breathe quietly, but my adrenaline was flowing as my heartbeat was escalating, and I gasped for a large breath. He heard. The darkness that covered the spy hole receded, and formed a pair of lips that were bloody and torn, and a mouthful of blood-stained teeth that looked like they were chewing on gum. They were...
That is when you literally... dip. Just saying.
Not chewing gum. The man had bitten off his own lips and was chewing on them while looking back through the spy hole with an absent-minded glare that only a maniac could give. He knew I was there, on the other side of the door, with his disgusting and mangled mouth. In a calm, almost happy voice he mouthed. This little Ricky had none. Then gave a bloody,
that is straight up nasty.
lipless grin. That was enough for me. I stepped back slowly. I thought about going into the kitchen to phone for the police, but I became so paranoid. I didn't want the risk of him looking at me through my kitchen window with those deranged eyes. In my head, I told myself it was a dumb drunk playing some mind game. I crept into my room and crawled into bed, hoping to forget whatever that was I'd just seen.
It's gonna look through your windows in your bed. That's why
I awoke.
you freaking close your blinds like this, bro.
At 3:27 a.m.
My
to a
blinds are
cold
closed
chill.
on
My
both
feet were
sides.
poking out of the bottom of the blanket. I started to pull my feet under the blanket when something at the end of my bed pinched one of my toes with a wet and icy grip. I scrambled and flailed my arms, climbing out of my bed, heading for the light switch. While I flung myself to the opposite side of the room, I heard the heavy breathing and footsteps of the stranger. His silhouette moved in such an eerie manner. It looked like he was gliding out of the doorway, looking like he was power walking into the hall, out of my flat. And back into the cold night. I turned on the lights. I thought to myself, that freak pinched my goddamn toe. It was that man. He'd gotten into my flat, but I don't know how. He left a collection of discarded cigarette butts at the end of my bed.
Don't smoke.
How long has this damn maniac been watching
This
me?
is really just a whistle. Train whistle. See. Well, guys, that's going to be the end of the video. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. And make sure you like this video. Bye.